Hi there, I'm Uncle Joel with Pen and Reel. So with my recent deep dive into Star Wars, I've been interested in getting into more of the books and the comics and the stuff that I've read in the past, but it's been, a couple decades since I've really read much of it. Many years ago, I read quite a bit of the Star Wars novels, but it's been such a long time, I wasn't really sure where to dive back into it. But it's been such a long time, I wasn't really sure where to start to dive back in. There might be a few novels that I want to reread, but for the most part, I'd prefer to stick with stuff that I haven't read yet. So I decided to specifically go for stuff that really interested me. The first book I decided to get was Darth Bane, Path of Destruction, because I was always interested in Darth Bane and I'd never read them. Now personally, I don't have a strong preference whether it's Legends or current canon or what print era it was. I just want to read Star Wars. I don't care about what continuity it is, I'm just interested in the universe. And since Darth Bane is one who's supposed to have set up the Sith Order as it is within the time of the movies, I figured that was a good place to start. I found it really interesting to consider how those ideas might have developed and what the philosophy was behind them, and just really exploring the progression there. Fortunately, I don't think the book does it that well at all. Now to be fair, I didn't finish the book, and at this point I'm going to say it's not likely that I will. I am DNFing it for right now, and quite possibly forever. So it may well be that those things are well developed later on, but with the way things are written with the majority of the first book, I'm just not expecting a lot of depth there. There are a number of things in the way that this was written that just make it very difficult to enjoy. It's not to say that the author is a poor writer. He does have sequences that are really well written, but those tend to be more the action sequences. And while it's clear that he is in the characters' heads decently, I feel like there's not a lot of depth to them, even when he's trying to explore things in a somewhat nuanced manner. They really are pretty straightforward and not that nuanced. And the main issue for me is every time I sat down to read, within a page or two, I found myself easily getting distracted by other things and found it very difficult to really focus on reading the story. Because far too much of it is fairly surface level and there's not a lot of depth there. And so while the core ideas of what is trying to be explored is interesting to me, the way that it is explored just isn't. So for instance, here's a minor spoiler for something that happens about midway through the book. The main character, Darth Bane, suffers a defeat of some sort. And this defeat really devastates him, to the point that his connection with the Force and his connection with the dark side is really challenged. He's having a hard time tapping into that energy that he used to have. So naturally, you would think this is going to be a very big plot development. I wanted to really see a deep exploration of what it is that's blocking him and how he's going to work through this and how he's going to pull through and make it out on the other side. Instead, it winds up merely a plot device to introduce another character. And so this new character, Githany, is going to try to train him and help him reconnect with the Force and redevelop his connection with the dark side. So personally, I would have really enjoyed at least a chapter of just how they're going to dive deep into the dark side, and maybe looking at old teachings and really exploring the depths of what is blocking him. Instead, we get a single paragraph, which I'm going to read right now. As promised, she was teaching him. The first few sessions had gone slowly, as she'd helped him work through his mind's fears of its own potential. Bit by bit, the black veil had been torn away. Piece by piece, she was helping him reclaim what he had lost, until once again he felt the power of the dark side coursing through his veins. And that's pretty much it. We get a single paragraph that just wipes away all of that turmoil and all of the difficulty that he had been having. This should have been a central tension and a real driving force for the story. This could be a strong character motivation and really show the strength and the depths of the character. Instead, it's just to introduce this new character and then they wipe it away. And unfortunately, that's the way a lot of this book works. For instance, there's also talk of this massive war raging between the Sith and the Jedi. And they spend bits of a chapter or two talking about how there is this massive battle waging over this planet where there is this army of Sith and this army of Jedi clashing. And that's something that would be phenomenal to see. But instead, you only see it through the eyes of a commander in orbit talking about the outcome of the battle. There are so many things within this book that are super interesting and would be amazing to explore, but they're just thrown in as background details just to progress the plot forward. I would really like these books to be good, but the way that they are written and the way that they're presented, it's very difficult to read. And even if the details within them are interesting, the way they're packaged is not. To the point that, yeah, quite frankly, I am probably never going to finish this. There is a slight possibility I might push through and finish the last 100 pages that I have left, but I really don't see myself pushing on through and then continuing into the second and third book. Like, it's one thing to push through just another 100 pages, which even that's been difficult. But to add on another 600 or 700 pages on top of that, like, that just sounds like a chore to me. It doesn't sound like something I'm going to enjoy. It just sounds like work. I'm going to get through it just so that I can say I got through it. And so when it started to occur to me that this was feeling more like a chore and that I wasn't really enjoying reading it, I decided to do a little test. And I picked up another book to see how long it would hold my interest. Like, maybe I was just being easily distracted at this point. But lo and behold, reading the other book, I read 50 pages straight and thoroughly enjoyed it. So I decided, okay, I'm going to take a break from that new book, and I'm going to go back to reading Darth Bane. And sure enough, within a page or two, I was getting easily distracted and I was finding myself losing interest in reading. So while the core of the book is interesting, while the basic concepts and the story trying to be presented is interesting, I really do not enjoy the way that it is written. Good ideas do not make a good story or a good book. There are so many ways that this book can be improved. At the very least, the way the author writes action scenes is very engaging and very interesting. And if he could infuse that energy into the rest of the book, it would be a lot more enjoyable. And it would be a lot easier for me to get through those difficult portions if it was written in a far more engaging manner. But it's not. I honestly think that if this wasn't Star Wars and this didn't have all of the lore attached to it, that I would have given up on the book far sooner. If this was a simple science fiction or a simple fantasy story, I would not have picked it up. Because, quite frankly, it's just not a good book. So yeah, that's why I DNF'd Darth Bane, Path of Destruction, and why I'm not likely to ever go back to it. Until next time, this is Uncle Joel saying, stay tangible.